Welcome to Stirring Strength, Perspectives on Mental Health and Addiction. I'm your host, Dean Anderson, and on today's show, we're going to talk about nothing and absolutely everything at the same time. I have Mike Lobb from Zendo, from the Zendo, on the show today. Thanks for being on the show, Mike.
Thanks, Dean. It's great to be here.
I'm grateful that you're here. You have stepped into a realm of creating the Zendo over on Horton.
Just
Hamilton?
off Hamilton at William. Yeah.
Just off of Hamilton at William.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a great thing for us to talk about on Stirring Strength. So if you're good with it, I'd love to hear your motivation behind starting the Zendo, or even let's go back one step. How about first you tell me what the Zendo is, so the people at home know what the Zendo is?
Yeah. So the Zendo is an official Zendo of the London Zen Center, which is a Zen meditation group in the city. And so this is our sort of practice center, where we have regular sittings and other things. Classes will be coming up, and some one-day retreats and whatnot. Basically where you can come and meditate with a Zen community. But additionally to that, we're sort of adding in a bunch of things around different types of sittings. There are people who may just want to sit and meditate with a group and don't want any of the other bits around it. And also a bit of a focus around meditation and addiction and the relationship there. And so we're setting up a sitting group that's specifically focused on that. So where people in addiction recovery, whether that's substance abuse or behavioral addictions or whatnot, can come and sit together and sort of investigate how that practice of meditation can be integrated into their recovery.
You're barking up my tree now. Right? You get my attention. You're like, the addiction part, I know I get your attention. First, before I'm going to certainly talk about that, but before we do, the viewers at home, what the heck is a Zen?
Right. So the word Zen, which most people associate in the West as sort of a blissing out or whatnot, that things are calm. Zen is a Buddhist tradition, and Zen itself literally just means meditation. So it's a direct process where we sit and try to remain aware of what's going on right now. People sort of confuse it and think, I need to be able to clear my mind. It's not really quite that. There's a lot more to it in terms of or maybe a lot less to it in the sense that we're not trying to do anything. We spend most of our lives trying to manipulate the world, manipulate our minds, control, right? Which is a big theme within addiction and recovery, our control of things. And this is really a process where we just sit quietly, often as a group, and sort of come back to what's actually happening in the world right now with ourselves, with our surroundings, and ground ourselves in that. So Zen literally just means that practice of meditation. And so there's no real doctrine around it so much. I mean, there are books and things that you can read, but really it's just this direct experience that we can have as individuals of reality. And often when we take up a practice like that, we find that what we think the world is and what we think we are and other people are takes on a different light. And so we see a bit more clearly into our lives, and that can be super beneficial, I've certainly found in recovery.
So the Do, I believe, translates to school. So then we're talking meditation at school.
It's just like a place where you would go, just like a dojo you would go to for martial arts. A Zendo is the place you go to practice sitting. So it's literally just a nice big room with a bunch of cushions and people sit quietly.
So the FAQs of this, I'll get into the FAQs.
Sure.
But first, Buddhist principles. I don't want to get too in-depth in it because we don't want to go down a rabbit hole. However, there may be some misunderstandings or belief, and I think there's some crossover with the thought and idea of Buddhism being a religion. And I think that kind of gets muddled. And I would love for some clarity in your understanding of, when you say Buddhist, what does it mean?
And so, obviously I'd just be speaking from my perspective, because there's just like any tradition or thought process. There's many different takes on it. Within Zen, it's not so much a religion in the sense that there's nothing to believe in. So there's not a doctrine or dogma and, you know, someone you have to pray to or anything like that. It's very much, often say it's non-theistic in the sense that it's really just a practice we take up that is a personal journey of connecting to reality, right? And so there's nothing to believe in. There are people from other faiths who practice it, right? In fact, in Toronto, my understanding is there's a number of, you know, Catholic priests and nuns who practice the same tradition that I do. And so it's not about believing in something, it's about experiencing it yourself. So in that sense, it's not a religion. Some people would say it's a philosophy, if you wish. You know, it's really, it's just your direct experience of reality.
Could we place it in the spiritual sense of in spirituality and kind of this greater, bigger thing that we're part of versus
absolutely
or more of a way of being?
Absolutely, because it's about getting, you know, for me personally anyway, it is about getting in touch with that which is larger than me, which is reality, right? Some people, you know, even would refer to that as the Tao, right? This, the flow of the universe, what we are part of. We don't need to necessarily define what that is. We're just actually going to have a direct experience of it. So often we get trapped in our minds, in thought about, you know, who am I? What is my purpose here? What is the world about? How does it work? And these are all interesting questions for the mind. But what we're trying to do is sort of something different, which is to directly experience that rather than create yet another thought about it. You know, the human mind is a wonderful creation, a wonderful tool. It allows us to make televisions and cell phones and watches and all these things, but it sort of works by creating a conceptual model of the world that we live in. It's super valuable. We know that a red light means to stop our vehicle.
It also screws us over.
But it also screws us over because it is a conceptual model. It is not the actual thing. So we can manipulate it into being all kinds of things, and next thing you know, we think all kinds of crazy thoughts. And certainly as it relates to addiction, you know, people have experienced all kinds of crazy thoughts and beliefs about themselves and the world and their relationships. And so we can approach that through, say, like a cognitive behavioral approach and say, okay, well, that's, you know, a less good thought, and we're going to replace that with a good thought. But then we're just kind of manipulating our conceptual model, right? And so with a practice like Zen meditation, what we're trying to do is step outside of that world of having either a good or a bad conceptual model of the world and say, can I actually just experience what is actually happening, right? And not need to layer anything on top of it. Probably will anyway, but because that's the way the mind works. But can I just have that direct experience?
Well, we can't step completely out of it. That's why we use drugs and alcohol, because it's the concept of thinking I can step directly out of it, but I can't.
Right.
However, I can be the observer versus...
Yeah, and there is, so, and in mindfulness, we often, there's often this concept of, just be the observer, and that's a valuable sort of part of it. Ultimately within Zen, we are in a way stepping at, words kind of break down on a lot of this stuff because words are constructs of the mind. But we are trying to spend more and more time in a place where we're simply being. Right? Rather than conceptualizing or thinking or categorizing or even observing in a way, we're literally trying to experience the direct relationship with reality. So if we think, people often misuse quantum mechanics as well, but if you think about the idea in quantum mechanics is that the experimenter is part of the experiment.
Sure.
And therefore, any experiment you do, you are manipulating the situation just by you being there and observing it. It's very similar in our experience with reality. Reality is changed by us being part of it, right? And so we can't really separate into this pure observer mode. We can't, we are having a direct experience of reality in every single moment. The question is, are we allowing that experience to exist, or are we then moving in with the mind, conceptualizing it, interpreting what something meant, taking some action based on that interpretation rather than what is actually happening?
Sure.
Right? And we've all experienced this in terms of relationships with other people, where we take something that they've said or a signal, a body language thing, and we interpret it as, oh, that person doesn't like me, or this or that. And in recovery, you know, the notion of catastrophizing, right? Or we get into our thoughts, and next thing you know, we've turned something that was nothing into some kind of big problem, right? And maybe I feel I need a drink now because this has become such a big problem. And in reality, that person was just having a bad day. Maybe their dog died the week before, and it had nothing to do with us whatsoever, right? But we weren't able to step out of our conceptualized view of the world in order to see that that's actually what was happening, right? And so as we practice a process like this, and we're starting to get more connected to what's actually happening, there's sort of a natural change that starts happening in us, and our heart starts opening to the world as we see it as it is, not this fearful thing that we've created in our head. And so it really has a shift of perspective, but it's not in a psychological sense of thinking about the world differently. It's that we actually start to taste the world as it is happening. And that's a beautiful and different thing.
A much grander piece of acceptance, and the idea of, I'm just part of this bigger whole. I'm just going to be in it.
Yeah, and I'm moving in it. Yeah.
Right. The emotional turmoil that comes from the idea of thinking that I have control over the universe is terrifying.
Right.
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 So there's lots of questions about the ideas of how we get that, and we'll talk in a minute about, you know, what those benefits look like. But first, how do you see it as being integral to mental health and addiction? And we'll put those two things together.
Yeah.
Just for simplicity's sake.
Absolutely.
Not that they're, you know, wholly intertwined.
Yeah.
How does this come to be a beneficial practice?
Yeah. I think in a number of ways, but really to boil it right down, I often think about addiction, and, you know, addiction just being in some ways an extreme way that we try to soothe ourselves from the discomfort of existence, right? That many of us experience in one way or another. And in a way, through addiction, or whether that's substance abuse or behavioral type addictions, we are trying to escape what we perceive as reality in that moment. So there is something about this moment that I do not like, and may create all kinds of feelings in me that I don't like. Feelings in my body, thoughts, feelings in emotions, and I want to escape from that. And so I may turn on Netflix and binge watch something. I may doom scroll Facebook. I may take a drink. I may whatever it is that I'm going to do in an attempt to escape that. Because this practice is based on just coming back to what's actually happening in any given moment, it's kind of the antithesis of that addiction, right? So it's saying, okay, I used to just try to escape this out of some kind of fear response. What if I just stay with it? What happens there, right? And so it's a way that we can, come back from that place of escapism, but also see what's actually happening, and is it something that we actually need to be afraid of, right? Often our emotions and our thoughts, they're, you know, to use sort of a Buddhist term, they're delusions, right? They're what we think is happening, not necessarily what is happening. And when we ground ourselves in reality, often things become less scary. right? Now, sometimes that's a bit of a journey to get there, and we have to go through some of those fears that we may have accumulated from childhood or throughout our lives. But it gives us an opportunity to face those things with a greater grounding than we had before, right?
Avoidance, in my experience in the work that I do, avoidance is amplification. So in the process of trying to avoid something, the mind and the heart makes it more important, because I don't avoid things that I don't care about. I only avoid things that have value. I'm scary or important. I only avoid things that have value. So in the process of us trying to avoid smaller emotions when we're younger can then amplify into me thinking that that thing is a really big emotion or a big problem, when in reality, I've created it because of my avoidance to it. Once I take time to look at it and participate in it, then the experience becomes different, and I start to see it for what it may truly be. Not to disregard the idea of true fear and true worry and like actual dangers and stuff. So we're not going to minimize that. I'm not going to look at a boss and be like, oh, that's just my imagination. And step into the street, right? So there's the reality to that, but it's when we look at the percentage of how much of it is actually perceived and how much of it is based in reality, is certainly more imbalanced than we may think.
And that's a great point, because really what we're talking about here is discernment. Can I discern between something that is actually a threat? There's a rattlesnake or a bus careening at me or something like that, in which case an appropriate response would be to get out of the way, to act in fear in that moment. But often, especially in addiction, we're acting out from something that's not actually happening or that happened previously. Right? And we're not able to move away from that experience and the emotions associated with it. And so we think about things like getting triggered, which is kind of having an emotional response to something, but really the response is about something that happened previously. And now we're not really grounded in reality. We're not appropriately responding to this incident. We're responding to the past. And there's no benefit to me usually to respond in that way to something that's not actually happening, right? And so, there's this whole idea around, whether it's past traumas or, trauma is kind of a big word that we use a lot these days, but
it's been blanketed across a lot of things. So we'll recognize that.
And we'll say, okay, considering the blanket, there's been things that have happened to us in our lives. We've developed certain beliefs or thought processes around those things. And they may have served us at a time, but they may not be serving us any longer. And are we able to step out of our reactions to the world based on what we think and actually ground ourselves? There's a huge thing here with meditation on grounding ourselves in order to say, okay, I am having this response, I am feeling this emotion right now, but I also recognize, just because I have this grounding, that that thing is not actually happening. And so can I simply...
Because in itself, it says, if I'm grounded here, that can't be happening because I'm grounded here. So it is...
This is a thought. This is a thought that is coming up. And so in that way, sometimes it kind of looks a bit like cognitive behavioral therapy, but instead of talking ourselves through it, we're developing the ability to experience it, right? So I may allow fear to rise through me. I don't need to do anything about it because I'm grounded in reality. I know that this event is not actually life-threatening. It's simply someone disagreeing with me over something, right? And so can I step into that, allow the feelings to actually happen, instead of, like you said, when we're suppressing them, we're making them bigger than they are. Can we allow them to happen? And there's sort of this process over time as we do this repeatedly and just keep coming back to what is actually happening, that these other experiences start to lighten. And we start to gain perspective, and that grounding simply enhances as we move through our lives of being able to say, yeah, this is a situation that is normally triggering for me, and I'm experiencing some fear right now, but I'm okay. I can be okay and I can do this anyway.
Not only the avoidance piece, but the action of self-soothing away from it. So if this is something I need to soothe from, therefore it must be bigger. So not only does the avoidance make it bigger, but the need to self-soothe. I heard someone say, I can't remember where I heard it, but someone was talking about the idea of being unwell when you're a kid and you've got a cold or whatever, and mom comes and lets you not go to school and then does a soup and lets you watch TV all day, and you and Bob Barker are hanging out. You know. What a great day that is. And it's the celebration of illness. It's this idea you're sick, so therefore,
100%.
and it's not that we're not going to give our kids love when they're sick, but this is the mentality of, you know, kind of where we're at. So my suffering deserves reward to some degree. So not only is it avoidance, I also need to go and self-soothe. Now it's double-edged, so in the addiction sense, right? And I love that concept, because self-soothing is so much of what, you know, I find we're doing in addictions is trying to make it okay. We think it's this catastrophic thing, and like you're saying, we kind of reward ourselves in a way by saying, well, geez, I deserve that because this has been a heck of a week, right? And then magically we find all kinds of reasons why it's been a heck of a week, and any day is a heck of a day. And next thing you know, we're in all kinds of trouble. But it's that notion that we have to soothe ourselves, that somehow life is supposed to feel good all the time. Right? Because that's a whole other episode.
Right? But we have this aversion to the idea that maybe sometimes I don't feel good. And maybe that's okay. I'm not going to die from not feeling good. It's not actually a threat to me. Can I step into sadness? Can I step into grief? Can I step into anger? Can I be okay there? Do I need to act out? Or can I just experience that feeling, right? And that's what we practice when we sit on a cushion. We're just allowing those experiences to come up. Nobody ever died on the cushion, right? You're not going to die. You're just going to allow this feeling, this emotion, this whatever it is, and not need to do something about it, not need to soothe it.
Sure.
And as you practice that, your body starts to learn and your mind starts, I'm okay. Right? I mean, if there's one thing that you can tangibly get from a meditation practice in not too much time, although, you know, it's always variable, is to be okay, right? No matter what is happening. And that's for people in addiction, that's a kind of life-changing, right? To be okay.
So here's the thing that, and I love to share this because it usually gets a bit of a response from people. On social media and in the platform of mental health, we often hear it's okay to not be okay. And it's like, you're not wrong. It's okay to not be okay. If I feel sad, unheard, or whatever, that's great. What tends to be overlooked in the addiction world is we need to know that it's okay to be okay. Because people with addiction, it's like being okay is not okay. If I'm just sitting and nothing is going wrong, then that's scary. So it's you know, kind of the opposite play on things. So there's almost a need or a craving for chaos or disruption because okay is not right. And those kind of things, that's a big thing for me, because those kind of things, they are both true and untrue, which is like so much in the world, unfortunately. It's just, that's the way of the world, right? It's true in the sense that in this moment, it's okay to be not okay, right? If I am feeling dysregulated because of something that's happened in my life, and I am just, I'm just not okay right now. That's okay. But if we start using that as an excuse, well, that's a quick path in many ways back to addictive behaviors, because I've normalized my not being okay, right? Instead of saying, okay, right now I'm not okay, but I want to move, I'm setting an intention in my life to move to a place where I can be okay with more and more, right? In my opinion, that's a place of greater emotional sobriety, of being able to be okay even when things are tangibly not really okay, right? When something bad happens, can you still be in that place inside you that is okay, right? that's how I believe is the measuring stick of people practicing sobriety or abstinence. They say, this bad thing happened and I didn't go use. This, I had this big emotion and I didn't run away from it. Sadness, loneliness, hurt. I went through divorce. I lost my job. Someone passed away, and I figured it out. And that's really the measuring stick. Not days, not months, not years.
Right.
I had a big emotional thing and I figured it out.
100%. Yeah. You're now finding yourself okay when the situation looks like you should not be okay. Right. And that is an amazing transformation. And that's what I relate to emotional sobriety as well, is being in that place where it's like, I'm sad, I'm experiencing grief, this terrible thing happened, but I'm okay. Right? Yeah.
Time-wise, that went by really quick. We got, a little bit of time left. But I want to make sure that we get to something, a couple of things. One is, first and foremost, the idea of sitting alone with my own thoughts for many people is terrifying. It's like the worst thing ever. What would you say to an individual to say, you're not wrong? You're not wrong. However, what do you do to experience this or participate or lean into that concept?
100%.
Because we're not saying you're going into meditation, now sit for 45 minutes on a mountaintop.
Right. And that's what I tried when I first started this practice when in early sobriety. And it doesn't work. It's not very helpful. It's frustrating. And usually leads people to be disillusioned with it and upset. And so it's not helpful. A couple things that come in. One is practicing with other people. It is not something that you can intellectually necessarily say, oh, that makes sense. But there is a power in meditating with other people. There's a power of being with other people, but there's a power in meditating with other people where it is more of a grounding experience. So definitely, especially at the beginning, not doing it alone or not doing it exclusively alone. The other thing is when we talk about a practice like this and an awareness practice and just sitting and allowing everything, that's not necessarily where we're going to start on day one, right? So definitely we do a practice around just focusing on our breath. So we notice thoughts come up, we return to the breath. Notice thoughts come up 2 seconds later, we just return to our breath and just being aware of our breath. But even with people who are having difficulty even doing that, there are sort of simpler ways that we can practice to get a foothold, such as, sometimes we teach people just to count their breath, right? So that they can just kind of bring their attention to the counting. And that takes away some of the scariness of the mind. The mind is a scary place, especially when we're fresh in recovery. And so there are approaches that we teach in terms of helping people get that initial foothold. At the beginning, when we are learning to meditate, sometimes it can appear like our thoughts are getting worse, right? And that's simply because we're starting to pay attention. They're always that crazy. We're now just putting our attention on them. And so the trick is, as we gradually work our way into that, it can be a bit bumpy. And that's, again, where being in a group and being able to talk to people about it is a major support. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend people start by just sitting in a corner and forcing their way through it.
So thank you so much, Mike. We're going to encourage everybody at home to figure out what it means for them to do a little bit more research, because obviously just sitting and doing nothing is bigger than that. And you could keep talking about it. But thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Please, best of luck in the Zendo. I will hopefully be by soon to see you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching Stirring Strength, and we'll see you next time.